Now to a developing situation at the National Assembly, where the House of Representatives has gone into a closed-door session after an uproar over this Electoral Act amendment bill. Now, lawmakers were thrown into some disarray after a motion seeking to rescind the bill was ruled in favor of the A's despite loud objections in the chamber. Now, this controversy comes as protests are also happening outside the National Assembly, with demonstrators demanding real-time electronic transmission of results ahead of the 2027 general elections. Our correspondent, Adesua Giwa Osage, is live at the National Assembly in Abuja. And Adesua, bring us up to speed on what's going on from the House floor. What triggered today's tension?
Good afternoon, Annie. Nice to see you today, and also good afternoon, Cynthia. Now, the House of Representatives is in a closed session, an executive session right behind me. What triggered today's activities is that Honorable Waive, who's the chairman of the Rules and Business Committee, stood up to move a motion to rescind the Electoral Bill Amendment Act that the House had passed in December, so that they can reconsider the amendments and align with the Senate committee. However, that did not happen. When he moved the motion was seconded by Honorable Bayo Balogun, who's the chairman of the Electoral Matters Committee, and the nays in the chamber were very loud. Now, the speaker originally said that the ayes have it, but there were protests, and then he moved to go to an executive closed-door session. Now, even that move by the speaker was very unpopular, and there was a lot of noise in the House. It seemed that some members did not want to go to a closed-door session. They do not want to rescind the decision they made in December when they passed the bill, and they do not want to reconsider these amendments. Now, this is also following what happened yesterday. Yesterday, the committee to consolidate both the Senate and the House of Reps, different versions of the bills, were supposed to meet yesterday at 11 a.m. Now, the chairman of the Electoral Matters Committee for the House of Representatives, Honorable Bayo Balogun, was at that meeting, as well as the Senate counterpart, Senator Lalong, but none of the members of the House of Representatives showed up. They then moved the meeting later to 3 p.m. yesterday, at which time we did have senators show up, like Senator Mongunu, who is the chief whip of the Senate, so that the House of Representatives and the Senate will be able to consolidate the electoral matters and also come with these 20 amendments by the time they come today to the emergency session that both the House and the Senate were having today, that they would be aligned. However, even at that 3 p.m. meeting, the House of Representatives members also did not show up. It seems there is a majority of the members inside. Sources right now indicate that majority of the members of the Green Chamber want to stand by the decision for real-time electronic transmission of votes. However, now they are in a closed-door session. From what we're hearing, filter through that session is that this right now inside the Green Chamber is very contentious and it's very heated.
Indeed, contentious and heated are the right words, Adesua, similar to what we saw about this time last week. Now that you have all these facts on ground, along with all the updates that you've given us, any predictions on how things might play out today?
If I were, I can't say I'll give predictions. If I was a gambling person, I would say that they might have to close today after their closed-door session and maybe not see that motion be retaken. However, we are on a very tight timeline. There's only 368 days to the date of the elections that INEC has currently announced. We need 365 days according to the laws that we currently have, the 2022 electoral bill. So that means there is a 3-day window, and of course, plenary usually only holds on Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. This emergency session is coming in the middle of budget, the budget hearings. We're having budget hearings to analyze the budget spending for 2025 and, of course, the budget proposals for 2026. So this is an emergency session. If the House of Representatives is not able to align or come to some type of negotiated agreement in their closed session, then I do not think that plenary will hold later today. But again, there has been a very strong push from the Senate in terms of not wanting this real-time electronic transmission. At the same time, there has been reports of tear gas at the gates of National Assembly, as we have protesters outside still asking for real-time electronic transmission of votes. So the people of Nigeria are currently at the gates of National Assembly. The members of the House of Representatives are currently behind a closed door, trying to negotiate or come to a conclusion that would, I guess, satisfy both the Nigerian people and their lawmakers. But again, it does seem that there is a very strong resistance amongst members of the House to acquiesce and go with the Senate's version, particularly of Section 63 of the Electoral Act.
And Adesua, is there a sense that, given the protests going on, in real time as the Senate is speaking behind closed doors, as you mentioned, is there a sense that the protests' desires or their wishes will be listened to? Will they be addressed? Or does it really feel like these are two separate bodies that are essentially not really communicating with one another?
Well, I do think that in terms of the protests outside, their voices are certainly being heard both in the red chamber and in the green chamber. If we recall, the session that the Senate held last week was also contentious. At some point in time, we also had Senator Abaribe actually call and ask for votes to be taken, but he did withdraw that motion. What is happening right now is that the electoral bill, the amendment, and the new laws are very contentious. There are 20 amendments, but most people are focusing on 63, Section 63, subsection 3, which of course focuses on real-time transmission and electronic transmission, and of course removing or reducing the powers that the Senate has currently given to presiding officers, or of course from disallowing the confusion that we had at the 2023 elections. So it does seem that the voices on the streets of Abuja, but also in our media, are being heard by the lawmakers. However, there is interest on both sides, and it does seem that it's going to continue to be contentious until a final decision is made. But as we are now more than an hour into the closed-door executive session by the House of Representatives.
This is why you mentioned earlier that the tear gas was used, and it was used against the protesters that are outside. Can you let us know what happened that might have led to that, if you have that information?
So it is still unclear. There are reports of tear gas. When that was going on, I was inside because the House of Representatives plenary had actually already started. So I was inside of National Assembly when those reported tear gas incidents were going on. Of course, I did see the campaigners and the protesters outside of National Assembly on my way in this morning. It caused a lot of disruption. Now, these protests have been ongoing for days now, and we've seen key members of the opposition also come out. We've seen Rotimi Amechi, the former governor of Rivers State and former minister of transportation. We've seen Peter Obi, who's the former governor of Anambra State, and of course former presidential candidate for the Labour Party in last presidential elections. So we are seeing key members of the opposition come out and join the protesters, but it has been a sustained protest outside of National Assembly now. It's unclear what led to tear gas or otherwise. The images I did see saw them very close to the gate. They do try and keep the protesters slightly away from the White House and the actual building itself, but outside the main gate. So I'm not sure if they were trying to access the National Assembly complex itself. However, what I saw earlier was a peaceful, mostly peaceful protest. So I'm not entirely sure what led to that tear gas incident.
Adesua Giwa Osage, live for us at the National Assembly. Thank you very much for your reporting and for joining us on Newsday.